Hello, welcome back to the channel. In this video, we are going to be talking about the Black Adam movie that just came out, and I'm excited to jump into this because it was honestly a bit unexpected. I had forgotten that this movie was even happening until last weekend, and I was like, oh, this movie is coming out like tomorrow. I should get some tickets and see how I like it. And that's exactly what I did. And to be honest, this kind of ended up being a nice surprise for me because I was pretty happy with what happened in the actual film. I liked the story and I was glad walking out of that movie. I was like, this was a good time spent. This was a good $10 for a movie ticket or whatever it was. And I do not regret watching this movie whatsoever. It was a fun ride. So that being said, I am not going into spoilers just yet, but I will let you know when I do. Let's talk about whether or not you should watch this movie. If you're a fan that just wants to take a look and see how The Rock takes a swing at playing the Black Adam character, you want to see what's going on with the Justice Society, you want to see all of that on screen unfold, seeing what that tension is going to look like, what the differences in their philosophies, I mean, this is the movie for you. It's going to go into that a little bit. It's going to have that as a good amount of the film. And it's just going to be a fun ride. I mean, the mystical elements, the backstory of Black Adam, all of this stuff comes into play. And so if you're like me and you don't know much about the character coming into the film, this is definitely a friendly film for you. It's not for someone who just has read the comic books and knows everything there is to know about the JSA or Black Adam. It really just touches upon who those characters are and then digs deeper specifically with Black Adam, assuming that you know nothing about who that character is. The other characters, I mean, they're there. I mean, they are definitely a huge part of the story, both the JSA members and the other characters. There are some other characters in this film as well. What I will say is the bread and butter of this film is, of course, Dr. Fate, Hawkman, and Black Adam. Those are the three big characters that I will say, like, if you want to see those characters, see this movie because they do a good job with them. Anyway, I can't go any further without talking about spoilers, so this is your warning right here. Let's get right into it. Not going to see any whining in the comments. I'm telling you right now, if you haven't watched this movie, go watch it and then come back. Let's get into the plot points. The big story beats for the entire story, I mean, the start of the story with how they introduce Black Adam's character or the Chosen One, all of that, talking about the Wizard, all the flashbacks, the introduction of the JSA, how they're brought into the situation, how they're seen by the locals there, like all these different plot points I think are fantastic, right? I think that the presence of Black Adam, the presence of the JSA, those are the big key pillars of this movie. Without that, I mean, the extra stuff, right? The normal people, I guess you could say. Not as big a fan of their presence in the film. I think that they were good at the beginning, but as it dragged on, they're just kind of there. Not really as necessary as characters. However, I think overall though, the actual plot, the actual big story points are perfect for this story. I think they work really well. And the characters that are not super powered, I don't care as much about them during this movie. However, they do have key plot points around them, so it still makes sense. I do think that they're not entirely without purpose in the film, but I do think that a story could have still been told without them for the most part, outside of that initial bringing about of Black Adam, how he gets actually brought back from his imprisonment. All of that, the battles between Black Adam, the battles between him and the JSA, very cool. I mean, all of the stuff there I just think is fantastic. I think that it did a great job with all of the action and the philosophical debate pieces between the JSA and Black Adam. I think all of that was very, very cool and very, very well done. And I will say the final battle, everything that goes on there, I think it is a satisfactory story overall, and I was happy with it. I'll definitely watch this movie again. So now let's talk about more specifics, even further than just the general plot. We have Black Adam's backstory, the flashbacks. I think that this was a very, very cool way to talk about and show the different elements of Black Adam's history, especially because we get tricked, right? We get tricked into thinking that The Rock's character is this child and he is the protector, the savior, the chosen one that was chosen by the wizards and given this power. In truth, that is not actually the case. He was not chosen at all. It was actually his son that was the brave hero of the country of Kandaq, right? He is the one that wanted to fight against the king and all of that. He wanted to save his people. The father was what you would classify as more, not necessarily a coward, but he was more of the common man, right? He wasn't willing to fight against his oppressors and all of that. Like, he wasn't the person that wanted to rock the boat. He just wanted to survive as best he could in the horrible situation that they were living in. So he was just like every other enslaved person in the country, right? Unlike his son, who was a hero that the people could rally behind, he was just a normal person. I must say, I really liked how all of this was, brought about, like how they formulated it and weaved it throughout the entire story. Perfectly done. I think that this was probably one of my favorite aspects of the film. I think that and the conflict between them and the JSA are the biggest plus sides, I guess, the biggest things in this film that are like, yes, these are the things you see this film to see, and I just really, really appreciated that. Let's talk about the JSA specifically. I think that it was a good choice to only have 4 JSA members. I mean, I gotta say, it would have been really cool to see the original Flash. It would have been cool to see who the other members are. I mean, maybe Wildcat would be another. I believe the Sandman is another one, but I guess that would probably throw some people off. Unless you wanted to tie that into the Sandman Netflix show, which I doubt they ever would have wanted to do that. However, that would have been pretty cool, showing that he was getting the dreams that he got in the comic book, all of that. I digress, though. That's not really a plot point in this film, but I must say overall, like, I am glad that they focused in on very specific characters here, specifically Hawkman being the leader of the team. I believe that's always been the case, or that's typically the case, right? At least in the incarnations that I've seen, like on Smallville and all of that, he's always been the person in charge of the team, and then Fate has been like the heavy hitter behind him as well. Same thing as what I saw in Smallville, so I thought that was pretty cool. I will say I do have a question as to the backstories of both Hawkman and Fate as a result, because, well, the fact is that Fate's mask, at least from what I understood, would drive the user mad, and yet in this situation, it actually extended his life, and not only that, it also didn't have the same impact. He seemed perfectly fine. He didn't seem insane at all. I don't know if that is a situation that only occurred with specific users of the helmet or what, but that was my understanding, at least just from my knowledge from Smallville. That's what I thought would happen if you put on Fate's helmet enough times. He would drive you mad. I mean, the only other version that I've seen is Zatara from Young Justice from like the first season, I think, and in that situation Zatara ends up passing on and Fate just uses his body at that point. So I don't really know what the specifics are of the helmet. Perhaps it's just like different incarnations have chosen to do different things. Maybe different writers have chosen different paths to go with that. I don't really have too much of a gripe with that. My bigger issue that I have with the way they introduced Hawkman was that they seem to not be talking about how he'll just resurrect when he dies, right? And also they don't really mention Shiara either, so that's confusing to me. I'm not too sure why that is the case. Maybe they just didn't want to go into the whole backstory of that character since he wasn't the focus of the film. If that's the case, I understand. It was just a question that loomed behind my mind, especially because of what happens later on in the film, which I'll talk about in a second. Before that though, let's talk about Black Adam's like issues. So specifically his issue with raging out and how when his son died, he sought revenge and destroyed the Capitol building or whatever, the palace of Kandaq, and as a result, he was imprisoned. All of that, I thought this was interesting, and I don't know if this is actually the case in the comic books. Someone would have to let me know in the comments below, because I just don't know enough about the character. I just assumed that he was an unworthy chosen one by the wizard, and that was his regret that he had chosen poorly, right? And as a result, Black Adam had gone down the wrong path. Now, in this story, I guess instead of that, it's that his son was actually the one that was chosen, and as a result, he was so angered by his son's death that he became a terrible user of the powers of Shazam after they were transferred to him. So I thought this was cool. I have no issues with this. I just don't know if this was the original story or if there was something else there. I have no idea. I'm perfectly fine with it. I thought it was a very, very cool story element, and I thought it was very, very interesting to see on screen. What I will say though is it did concern me when he almost killed the kid by accident, when he got upset when his son was brought up. So that was definitely intriguing. I didn't expect that to happen, and I understand why then he submitted himself to be taken prisoner and all of that. Thought it was a very, very well done scene. Next thing, let's talk about the demon. Okay, this was the one part where I was like, this is the weakest element of this movie. They honestly were like, yeah, let's just bring about this villain that we know nothing about. Like, his motivations are hollow, and you know, it is what it is, right? I feel like a lot of movies have this issue, specifically superhero movies, where it's like a lot of villains, like 90% of villains don't have the best motivations, and so they end up being a lot more forgettable. It is unfortunate, but you know, it is what it is. I don't care too much. I think the bigger issue was the actual design for the demon threw me off a bit. I thought it was a bit, not cartoony, but it didn't look maybe as realistic as I would have hoped, and I thought this kind of pulled me out of the film a few times. So that is one thing I will say, like in terms of the visual effects. I didn't love the demon specifically. I think for the most part everything else I think was pretty good, but with the demon it made me kind of feel a little odd sitting there at a few moments. But overall, I mean, you know, I can forgive this because the rest of the movie I really enjoyed. And that being said, it also brings about something else that I have a pretty big question mark about, right? So Fate sacrifices himself in this movie, and what he does is he creates a force field, goes in there, fights, also gets Black Adam to wake up, right? So that's his sacrifice. He's trying to also save Hawkman from, you know, sacrificing himself as well. And my question here is, why is this the specific pathway? I mean, we're just told that it is, kind of, and it's kind of like a Doctor Strange situation, right, from Endgame as well, where it's like we're just kind of told that this is the only way that things could have gone down, where it's like we'll just have to take his word for it, right? I don't know why he couldn't have just created a force field around the demon and called Fate, or called Black Adam from outside of it. I don't know, but you know, they needed a sacrifice, I guess, for the film, and unfortunately it had to be it had to be Fate, right? I don't think that was the character that I would have chosen. Honestly, would have rather have had Hawkman pass away in this film, but that's just my opinion. I mean, I didn't like him as much as Fate's character, but I do think that Hawkman's character was interesting. If I had to choose, man, I would have chosen Fate to be the one that was saved. And perhaps that's also one of the benefits of having him be the character that passes, because it's a bit more impactful. But I just have some questions as to what exactly was the reasoning behind Fate giving himself up. Now, fast forward, I mean, I don't really need to talk about the fight. The fight was really cool, right? Fate's fight, awesome. Thought they had some great effects, great events going on there. Same thing once Black Adam happened and all of that. But this was just like, you know, it is the climax of the movie. Very cool, having fun. Let's talk about what happens after this, though. The JLA, or the JSA rather, leaves, says, okay, bro, you can stay in Kandaq, have fun. We're not going to bother you. Just like, you know, cool it a little bit. Don't kill everyone and don't cause problems. We don't want to have to come back. Then we get this iconic moment where Black Adam sits on his throne, which is like a comic book panel, I believe, that I've seen this image before, so that was really cool. Then he destroys the actual throne, right? And my question here is, so is he not going to be the king of Kandaq? Because I mean, in the comic books, he is the monarch of Kandaq, so I'm curious to see exactly what happens next from there. I mean, he says he's going to be the protector, so we'll just have to wait and see as to what exactly that means moving forward. If he comes back very soon in the DC universe, I'm sure he will, especially considering the post-credit scene. So let's actually talk about the post-credit scene, right? We end up having Black Adam, Amanda Waller's talking to him, being like, hey, don't step out of line, of course. Just stay in Kandaq. We won't have no problems. You don't want to stay in my prison. It's fine. But I will call in some favors if you refuse. And he's just like, bring it on. Bring it on. I don't care. Bring on the fights, all right? It's going to be a fun time. I'm going to break anyone that comes my way. And then Superman appears. Henry Cavill's Superman appears in this movie at the very end, and I'm so happy for it. I mean, it's only a very, very small moment. It's a post-credit scene, right? So nothing completely spectacular is happening here. However, it is a reintroduction, right? It is the Superman persona being brought back into the fold, as opposed to some like floating cloud in Peacemaker, or like these very vague references here and there and like Shazam and stuff like that. So I'm very happy about this. I'm so happy because it gives the potential for a future fight between these two characters. It might even bring about a potential fight between Shazam, Black Adam, and Superman, just like we have in an animated film that I watched way back when. So we're just gonna have to wait and see exactly what Henry Cavill's Superman is gonna have moving forward. That being said, that is all I have to say for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below on the Black Adam movie. What were you most excited about? Are you excited for Superman? Did you enjoy The Rock's interpretation of Black Adam? Did you love the JSA? What exactly did you love about this movie? What are your thoughts? Please let me know in the comments below. Also, if you liked the video, please like the video and subscribe for more videos from me on this channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day. I will see you next time. Bye.